guys, it is Reed and welcome back to another video. Today we got Mentalism 101 episode 4, all about having a process. Now I mentioned this in the last video that this would be the topic of this video because it is such an important topic. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I highly encourage you to stick around because you're going to learn a lot and learn why this is so important, because you need it yourself in your mentalism, I assure you. So if you guys like this series, Mentalism 101, and would like to see more, make sure you just drop a like, drop a comment, and with all that said, let's not waste too much more time. Gotta plug the website, check out rfsleights.com, some merch, some private lessons, and let's get into the video. Mentalism 101, episode 4, having a process. So what do I mean by having a process? Well, having a process means how do you read minds, right? Not the method, but how do you read minds from the spectator's perspective? What do you do? What needs to happen for you to read minds? Supposedly. It's not the actual method, but it's the effect of you reading minds, right? It's not the method, it's the effect, okay? What is your process for reading minds? Now think about it in card magic. Let's say we're doing a gambling demo, right? And you're explaining second deals and bottom deals and that sort of thing. But that's the effect. Maybe the method is actually using double lifts. So right, you do a double and then you do a fair deal, but claim you're dealing the second card, and you know it can look like a super fair second deal, and so you're using the method is completely different from the effect. Your process is completely different from the method. So the process is what the spectators believe you do to read minds, how you do it, what you need to do to read minds, what you have to do. Okay, what the spectators believe that is necessary for you. So every time I say you have to do what you should do, I'm saying what in the spectator's mind, right? These aren't actual methods or what you need. It's what they believe you have to do and what you need to do to be able to read minds, okay? It's how it works to read minds. How do you read minds personally? What is your way of, what do you need to do? Do you need to jump off a bridge? Do you need to cut down a tree? Do you need to drink apple juice? What do you need to do to read minds, okay? That is your process. Now, why do we need a process? And yes, you do need a process. Every mentalist needs a process. Now, it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. Mine is not particularly grandiose, but you need one, and I'll explain why. First of all, it adds credibility. It makes what you're doing seem possible, right? If you have something that needs to happen to be able to achieve it, then maybe we're in the realm of real, right? And you always want to keep your mentalism in that realm of real. Imagine if you peek the name, right, that someone's thinking of, and you just immediately say that name, then again, I've talked about this before, but they'll just assume you must have seen the name, right? But if you say, I can't read your mind unless I hold your hands, well, then they're like, okay, well, maybe this is true, you know, and then if they refuse and they're like, no, read my mind, I don't want to hold your hands, it's like, sorry, I can't do it then. Right? Why would you say you can't do it if you already know the name, right? It's one of those things that adds some credibility. It also inherently makes the trick engaging because you have a bit of almost a story. You have something that's going on rather than just you sitting there. Derek, you know, like you're doing stuff, and it keeps the presentation engaging, especially if you have an engaging process, right? And you can make it whatever you want, really. It can be something as silly as, you know, cutting down a tree every time you do it. Don't do that. That's probably bad for the environment. But you know, having a chocolate bar every time no, don't do that either. That's not good for you. Having broccoli every time you need to read minds. Yes, go have some broccoli. That would be funny, right? And it would be engaging and entertaining. Another thing is it hides the method, like I was mentioning with the billet peek. If you reveal the name right away, you must have seen it. If you do a bunch of stuff, then that must be how you're doing it. So no matter what the method is, if it's an app, if it's a peek, if it's a propless sort of thing where you're using some fishing techniques, different things like that, whatever comes after, once you already know the information or your process. I mean, you can do this definitely simultaneously with the actual method, but it'll disguise what the actual method is, right? If I'm fishing for a letter, say, and I say, it's an A, isn't it? But then I'm like, okay, hold my hands, look into my eye. Okay, it's an A, isn't it? Now it feels like I'm actually picking up on it, right? I'm picking up on the A. I'm not guessing, which is actually what I'm doing, right? If I just look at her and I said, is there an A in it? Then it totally feels like I'm just guessing, right? So you need something going on as what is actually happening, especially when you do some of those more propless type things. And finally, And one of the biggest, and if not the biggest, most important reason is that it lets you get away with murder. Literally, no, not well, maybe literally, but figuratively, it lets you get away with murder. The funny thing is, guys, people, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but people will let you do anything in the context of a magic trick. You can get someone to dance on the table and take their shirt off if you tell them that something magical is going to happen, but only if you've established that credibility and you're believable. So whenever, like, say I'm asking someone for their phone and I'm going to go on their phone to do something, I always do something else first, so there's that credibility aspect. So, you know, it's not just, "Hi stranger, may I have your phone?" Right? They know that I'm good and that something amazing is going to happen out of this, so they want to see it, right? But now, the thing is, you're in control, right? So this is where it ties into having a process. Since you're in control, whatever you need to happen to make this work, you can have it your way, right? You can just say, "Sorry, this doesn't work if I don't do it this way." Just doesn't. I can't read your mind. I can't make you feel this touch when I'm touching someone else if you don't get on the table and take your shirt off and start dancing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and people, if they believe that you're gonna do it, or if you've established some credibility, they're gonna do it because they want to see this amazing thing happen. They don't want to ruin it for everyone else either if you're in a group, which is even better. So you can literally get away with anything. And an example, one of my favorite uses is sometimes I need to actually set up something on someone's phone. I need to change a setting or something sneaky. Obviously, I can't just take their phone and start going around doing things on it, right? But if I've established some credibility and now I say, "I need to get a sense of your phone here. It'll actually help me. Maybe I'm doing a name. Like, you know, I can see your. Actually, can I see your contacts? Do you mind if I see your contacts? Just it's the name you're thinking of is not in your contacts, right? Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna scroll through and it's just gonna give me a sense of who you are, how you think, what kind of people you know, and give me some sense into your contacts, right? So now I have full access to their phone. They think I'm just scrolling their contacts. I've given a justification, and now I can do whatever I want. And to them, that's my process, getting a feel for them through reading their contacts. But really, I'm doing something else sneaky, or I'm getting whatever the case is, right? So that's just another thing to think about. You can get away with literally anything by just saying it's part of your process and having a justification. How do you do this? So I'm going to give you a bunch of different things that can be part of your process and how you can use this, and you just pick and choose what you like, and you can think of your own ideas as well. First thing you need to think about, though, is what exactly you want to convey to the audience. The feeling and the experience of mentalism that you want to convey to the audience does need to be congruent with your process. So if you want this to feel super real and authentic, then you should do things that aren't silly, right? That feel real and authentic. Okay, maybe a hand hold, shoulder touch, look me in the eyes, say it over and over in your head. You know, things like those things that I do. That's kind of what I do when you watch me perform. A lot of my process is authentic feeling, I would say. And then on the other hand, if you want to make your magic more fun, silly, funny, then have a process that's funny. That's such a good, easy way to add comedy to your magic. If you want it to be funny, say you need to eat broccoli to read minds. That's going to get laughs every single time. Carry around some broccoli with you, hilarious. Now, one great strategy is to make your process what you believe in and what you could see yourself doing. So if you see a mentalist and you think, "Oh, that's super cringy," well, that probably shouldn't be part of your process then. But if you see something and you say, "I like that, more importantly, I can see myself doing that," then you're good to go. And this ties into, you need to make it something that you believe. What do you believe real mind reading would look like? Imagine it's real. What would happen? Would they have the person repeat the first letter in their mind? Would they take a bite of broccoli and then be able to read their mind? Would they jump in a circle and then be able to read their mind? Would they have to, look down at the person's palm and do some kind of palm reading to be able to know? Like, what does real mentalism look like to you? What do you want it to look like? Think about that, and that's probably a great place to start on your process. Because if you believe it, everyone else will believe it. And that's super important. You need to sell and believe what you're doing. So I don't care how silly it is, if you're going to commit to it, you better believe that that is actually what it takes for you to read someone's mind. So you get that peek. You know the name is Jacob. No, you don't. You haven't done your process yet. So forget about that name. Obviously keep it somewhere in your head so you can actually say it later. do your process, and then at the end of your process, oh, it's Jacob, right? Actually do that. If you do that and you believe that and you sell it yourself, everyone else will believe it as well. Okay? That's how you can be a truly great actor, is you just do it for real. So some other like actual things you can have as part of your process are saying things. You could have certain sentences, words that you need to say or you need them to say, right? A common one if you're thinking of like a lie detector type plot, and you say, you know, I just want you to say my card is black, and they say that, and then you would read if they're lying or telling the truth, right? That's something you need them to say because you're reading them, right? That's an example. You can have them say something, right? You could, if it's a name divination, I always use names. Let's go star sign. If it's a star sign divination, you could say, I would like you to just say you were born in October. Just say I was born in October, and it's just a random month. And they'll say I was born in October. And you say, aha, okay, so you were actually, the way you kind of stuttered a bit, you were born in the first half of the year, right? Easy process. Do something, right? You could literally do anything, like I've talked about. It could be with an object, it could be something you do yourself, right? I snap a lot. I do this, I say just send it to me. Like I have things that I do, gestures that I do, things that I say, right? Those are all important. Now other things are touching, right? Now, guys, please be reasonable, be sensible. Don't go up to someone and be like, yes, okay, I've got it, Jacob, right? No. A hand touch. Always ask though, you know, can I see your hand? Shoulder touch. Those are things I like to use. Like I've kind of mentioned, doing actions or gestures. They could be big gestures or just small little things. Items. We've touched on items. The broccoli. You know, I think someone should do that. I think that's pretty damn funny. But you can have, you know, you can almost transfer the mentalism to the item. You know, this phone, this deck of cards, this key will read your mind. I need you to hold on to it. You know, imagine it's this, imagine it's that, feel that. And then you can maybe take the key from them and now you feel it, and that gives you what they're thinking of. That's actually pretty neat. I actually quite like something like that, where they kind of transfer the aura to an object, give it to you, and then you can pick up on that. And another way to add credibility to your process would be to get something wrong when you don't do the process. So let's say, for example, maybe you've done the process a few times, or maybe even this is your first time doing it, and someone's thinking of a number, right, from 1 to 10, something simple. You can just throw out a number, right? Maybe you already know what the number is, maybe you don't, maybe you haven't done your peek yet, whatever. But let's say they're thinking of 6, and you would just say, okay, focus on it. 4. And they'd be like, no. You'd be like, no. Like, of course. I forgot the most important thing. In order for me to read minds, I always need, I just need to look at your palm for a second, and I totally forgot, sorry, I blanked. Or if you've already done it before, you say, yeah, you remember in the last one I held your palm, I forgot this time, obviously, so it didn't work. And that's just a little bit of subtle psychology that to them, they'll be like, why would he screw up on purpose? All right, I wouldn't do it like screw up your whole big effect, but if something small like that, get it wrong the first time, and then, you know, you hit it the second time, once you do this, it's still very impressive. And it shows that your process might actually be real, which then will show that, okay, that may actually be the method, and everything else you used is not going to be the method, and get them up further away from the actual method. And another thing that you can do if you want is to ask questions that are a bit more revealing as to what they're thinking of, to make it more believable, right? So imagine a scenario where you said, think of any animal, and you just nail it, right? Literally super clean, you just giraffe, boom. Super impressive, but like you must have, if they wrote it down, you must have seen it, or you got lucky or something. Like to them, there's gonna be like, okay, I don't know that I believe this guy's actually reading my mind, it's just too perfect. So what you can do is ask them some questions that give you hints, whether you need them or not. Maybe you already know it's giraffe because you got a peek, but ask them questions that'll narrow down the scope a bit, narrow down the box a little bit of what their thing could be, so that now they can see, okay, you know, it wasn't too crazy. He knows that it's a mammal, right? You can ask them, so is this thing a mammal, right? And they'll say yes. And you say, okay, would you find this in North America? And they'll say no. You say, okay, keep focused. And then maybe just 2 little questions like that. Think about how broad it still is, right? It still could be literally so many different animals, but now when they think about it, it's like, okay, you know, he actually is doing something. You know, he needed me to answer those couple of questions, narrow it down a bit to help him out. If he already knew what it was, why wouldn't he have just said it? Like, it's coming back to that idea. Why would you ask those questions if you already knew the answers? But you're still keeping them fairly broad, but to them it's like, okay, an animal, a mammal that's not in North America, okay, I could see how he could, maybe pick up on some things now to help him finish the rest of the puzzle. Now, of course, you choose what you want to do. This changes depending on so many things, your style, what you want, but take some of these ideas, make your own. If you have any ideas for other process elements, or what do you do for your process, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to know. Now, another thing that I think deserves its own little section, which we'll talk about now, is having an answer to the question, the great old question, how did you do that? Now, there are a lot of classic answers to this, a lot of them corny jokes, but I still use some of them, and it's a question that magicians deal with a lot. And if you'd like a video diving even in more depth into how to answer the how did you do that question, I can look at that and consider doing that. Let me know in the comments. But having a process now allows you to have an easy answer for how did you do that. Because in mentalism, I find that question almost more difficult than in card magic. In card magic, you can just say sleight of hand, magic. But again, if we're trying to make our mentalism feel a bit more real, what do you say? Well, okay, you could just say mind reading, but oftentimes that's not an answer that people are going to like enough to leave you alone. Okay, trust me on that one. They'll want more. Yeah, of course. Okay, yeah, mind reading. But how do you, like, what do you read? What do you see? Like, So having your process outlined and actually doing it, now you just point back to your process. You say, so remember when I held your hands, I was getting a feeling, getting the sense. I was just feeling some of the energy you're putting out as you focus on it. And I just pick up on the little things as best I can. So some of the things that you can now say, I'll give you a bunch of different examples of things you can say and how to answer that question when it comes to mentalism. You could just opt for the real mind reading answer. You just say, yeah, I just read your mind. I don't choose to do that because I don't want to leave people believing that psychics are real and that you can actually read minds. I think it's kind of disingenuous to leave people with that sort of, okay, this is real, because then now they meet a psychic a few years down the road and they start talking about their dead relatives, and now they're fully willing to believe this con artist because they saw this magician one time who, made them believe it. So I personally choose to go down the route of the following. I talk about psychology, body language, influence, micro signaling, body reading, persuasion, those kind of things, right? So those are, 6 different answers that you can use as an answer. You can just use one of them. I usually throw a couple of them in. I say, it's a combination of several techniques. I use influence, body reading, persuasion, and just how micro signals that you give me as I ask you things and do things. Another little tip, little side note, if you're doing any fishing or anagramming in your mentalism, those questions that you ask, you're always trying to frame them as not a question. But now you can look at those as part of your process, because obviously you're trying to make it seem like a statement, right? And you try to swing it as a statement, but certain situations you kind of have to swing it as more of a question, and you say, yeah, I was just gauging your reaction when I asked that, right? And you can kind of take it off the answer that they gave you and more of a, no, I just asked that question to get a reading, and that told me so much more than you even believe. Lately, I've been liking the explanation of, like, I say it's like a game of 21 questions. I'm asking you questions and getting the answers to narrow it down to what you're thinking of, but I'm not actually asking the questions, or you're not even telling me the answers. I'm just using different verbiage, maybe a few questions here and there, but they're not super related and they're very vague, but I'm using words and I'm having you do things that are indirectly answering these questions that I have in my head, and I'm narrowing it down till I come on to what I believe you're thinking of with all these techniques. So those are my explanations for sort of how I do it, and it's so easy to answer that question now because I just talk about my process. And a few other things you can talk about: muscle reading, NLP, right? Any of those things, just pick one. Pick influence, persuasion, whatever you like, and that'll be your answer, your explanation. So finally, to end off this video, I want to give you a few examples of my process in a bit more detail, a couple things I haven't touched on as much. So some vocal things I like to do is I like to have them repeat the name or whatever they're thinking of in their head a lot. I say just repeat that in your mind over and over. To me, it's a nice thing where they're saying it, and then if I choose to reveal it, then it gets an amazing reaction, or it feels like something you might actually have to do. I also like saying, scream it at me in your head, something like that. I always like to guess the first letter. I'm a big fan of doing that. Reveal the first letter first, or just a letters. Not always the first, because sometimes first letter makes the rest of the word too obvious. Depends on the word. But guess a letter or two from the word. That's always part of my process. Like, it's almost like I don't know the full word. I have to work on it letter by letter, so I like that. I always like the hand touch, the shoulder touch. It makes it feel intimate. It makes it really feel genuine. So guys, that is it for this episode of Mentalism 101 on having a process. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this video, what your process is going to be, and if you already had one, what your process is. I would love to know. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. This video turned out amazing, super good. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it. Now I just want to welcome all the new subscribers. I think we're gonna hit 3K very soon, and I'm very excited for that. And it's gonna keep growing. I'm gonna speak this into existence now. I want to hit 10K before my birthday next year. And my birthday, if you do not know, is August 25th, so we got about a year. 10K, let's get it. Okay? We're gonna work hard, and hopefully we can make it happen. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And like always, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.